So the sixth question is, a lot of us diehard fans refer to Toni Morrison as the queen. Which writer do you feel could be the next queen in African American literature? So of course this is all relative, right? I mean, I guess that's the word you would use. But I'm going to tell you right here, okay? And I've always said this, and I've always mean this. My three favorite authors as it concerns contemporary fiction is Toni Morrison, Amy Tan, and Gloria Naylor. These ladies, to me, you know, I think that maybe this is the right way to address this, but they were transitional authors for me. They were the ladies who pulled me out of maybe my early college reading taste and much more into something that's a lot more complex, you know what I mean? They're the ones that kind of shaped how I saw literature and how I learned, you know, how I read, you know, how I learned to, you know, connect with the kernels in books, the satellites in books. These are the things that I learned from these authors. How I started to pay attention to, the complexity of prose and poetry. They were like my workhorses. So Gloria Naylor is definitely up there with those three. Gloria Naylor is definitely within that whole thing. And what I love about Gloria Naylor's stories is that her books are filled with different narrative, different characters, and there's always that fair amount of darkness that goes on within her books. And that is something that has always been, I've always been captivated by, is that bit of darkness in her books. And I just love Gloria Naylor. She's a fantastic storyteller. There's always something underneath her writing that is so in-depth to get, and it's always a reflection of just basic the human condition, you know what I mean? It's just that basic. But anyway, I'm going to try to keep this short and not go into her too much because she recently passed I think maybe a year or two ago. But with Gloria Naylor, my favorite books by her is number 1, Mama Day, which blew me out of the water at how some writing can be done at the time that I read that. And my second favorite by her is, of course, Linden Hills. Linden Hills is, I was going to say something so inappropriate, but Linden Hills is definitely one of my favorites. So I'm going to keep moving on from here. Seventh question is, what's the last book by an African-American author you read, loved, and gave 4 stars? Since I can't put Sophronia Scott on there, I guess I could, but I'm not going to do that because it is a part of a read-along and I've already finished it a couple of weeks ago. You know how I am. I'm not good at read-alongs. But I'm going to go ahead and put Life is So Good by George Dawson. This is the story of an ex-slave's grandson who only learned how to read and write at the age of 98 after living well past a century. Okay? I love this book. I gave it 4 stars. Toward the end, it kind of dribbled along. But what really the concentrated focus that I received from this book is, this is a man who has lived an entire century. In the early 20th century, being 6 years old, he witnessed the hanging of a friend of his. And of course, this had some very consequential and damaging effects on his psyche as it relates to how he see, the white people. These are the people who barraged his friends. They strung him up from a tree and they hanged him right there in front of everyone. It's very animalistic, and he understood that at this point in time he had to transition from being a boy to being a smart boy, a clever boy who had to learn how to, I don't want to say stay on code, but navigate and stay on code in his relationships with other white individuals. But what I like is that his father sort of infused within him the thought that although you do have to do these things to be safe and protect yourself within this world, you also have to use, white employers and that sort of thing, farm hands and that sort of thing, to further your own personal progression as a person. You have to work for these people. You have to work extra hard to get money and to use that money to, buy your own land, buy your own stock. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what his father taught him. But with that aside, he spent his entire years after turning 21 traveling the nation. He went to Canada, he went to Canada, he went to Mexico. But the thing is that because he didn't know how to read and write, he had to use different techniques and methods to navigate. And, oftentimes he came across some con artists, they tricked him out of round-way train tickets. And he found himself in various dangerous situations as well. But he learned, and by the end of the book, learning how to read and write and taking himself to night school became an inspiration for everyone worldwide. So number 8 is show some beautiful books by African American authors. I really didn't pull anything from my shelf, so I said L.A. Banks. L.A. Banks' sci-fi, urban fantasy, vampire hunter series. A series that is filled, a series that was filled with biblical mythology as well as other various cultural mythologies as it pertains to vampire hunting. Like, it's a really deep series. I think it could have used some editing as well because, there was some brevity that needed to be in some of these areas, but this is what I'm going to show here. And then we're just going to say Eric Jerome Dickey right here. So those are my stacks that I'm going to show you guys without having to pull them off the shelf. So number 9 is Black History Month is about its people. What book would you like to read to learn more about African Americans? I'm glad she kept that at a singular because I really want to do 2, but I know how I tend to ramble. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick From Babylon to Timbuktu. I bought this a couple years ago, and by Rudolph R. Windsor, and the subtitle is The History of Ancient Black Races, including the Black Hebrews. But I bought this a couple of years ago, and I kind of started, but because it is nonfiction, it's nonfiction without that whole, storytelling, generating element. It takes me a little longer to get through, but I think I'll just piecemeal it. But it tells the story of, and I think this is a kind of a controversial book as it's been released like way back in the 60s, I believe, but nonetheless, the point is that it illustrates black people and their roles as not just evolved, civilized race or ethnicity, but their roles in like the Mesopotamian era, their roles in Egypt, their roles in the Middle East, and how it was really some of the stagnation of Europeans that came and disrupted the flow. We'll keep it at that. But From Babylon to Timbuktu, I think is a very good. It's a book that I really do want to get into reading. To coincide with this question. Number 10 is show what you're currently reading from your ReadSoullit TBR. That book is Gathering of Waters by Bernice L. McFadden. I'm already 50 pages in. I feel like I can read this book in just a day. Like, this is really a quick read. Without going into details, I'll probably be speaking to the people who've already read this book, but I feel like the character of Doll is so unfair. What's happening with her is so unfair. I'm a big firm believer in self-identity, and I don't like I don't like control or things being, there's like this, it stirs within me when people try to control people. I'm keeping it vague, but I have to keep going with this book, but I'm so pissed off. I just feel like that's so unfair with how this is drawn. And I mean that in a good way. This is a very intriguing read. But I want to say this also. Last year I read Cynthia Bond's Ruby, and I did enjoy that book, but I felt like that book was one of those kind of books that was leaning so much on, things that have already been done by African American authors and literature, which made it kind of like a read that was trying too hard. But as I was reading this book, I was like, Cynthia Bond, did you read Gathering of Waters to create your character of Ruby? I see some things. See, she was giving me not only beloved in that book, but she was giving me some doll in that book as well. But that's kind of it. I'm just gonna leave it there. You know me, I can go all day on something. Anyway, the last question is tag 5 or more people. I'm not gonna tag anyone. I wasn't tagged, but I just encourage anyone who has a camera and a platform to go ahead and do this tag. It was fun. I enjoyed looking back at some of the books that I've read over the years. But anyway, that's it. Have fun. As always, love yourself. Believe in yourself. Read all the books that you want to read. And that's it.